Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to the Nickel, 5th Ward, baby. We are at the first high school here in 5th Ward. And it was located right here on the corner of Gregg and Lyons Avenue. It was once a white elementary school, but they gave it to blacks because blacks started moving on the other side of Jensen in the early 1920s. And they called it Phyllis Wheatley. 1927. It was right here on the corner of Gregg and Lyons Avenue. All right, everybody, we're going to you live. And right up here was the Deluxe Theater. All righty. We're live. And right over here used to be the Club Matinee, which was right across the street from the Deluxe Theater. The Club Matinee was one of the hottest spots in Houston, not only in 5th Ward. All your celebrities used to come there. B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, Lightning Hopkins, Big Mama Thornton. That's how she got started out here. And all of this was Lyons Avenue, named after the ancestors of Squatty Lyons, who used to be a county commissioner here in Harris County before he retired. And also a 5th Ward. And right now we're going to the first school here in 5th Ward. And it was no other than Crawford. And like I said, when they built Crawford in 1916, blacks had not yet crossed Jensen Drive. See, at one time in the early 1900s, all this used to be whites. White people stayed right here on the other side of Jensen and Lyons Avenue. And then in 1961, that's when they built and took a lot of homes to build the East Tex Freeway. We know it today as Highway 59 North. And that happened in 1961. They took a lot of homes out of here. Then right up here, as we go up here to Jensen Drive, this used to be the cutoff line. On one side of Jensen used to be for blacks, and on the other side was for whites. But in 1916, they built the cutoff line for blacks. They built them an elementary school right on the borderline between the whites and the blacks, and that was in 1916, and that's when they built Crawford Elementary School. Now, as we go back down here, and right up here was Crawford Elementary School, and all the kids that used to go to Kellycourt and 5th Ward, they started their education right here at Crawford Elementary School. Now, as we go here, and we're going to show you, like I said, this was the cutoff line right here at Crawford Elementary School. Now, as we go here, we're going through what they call the Bloody Fifth. See, one side of Jensen was for white, and then this is the first part of Jensen, or the first part of the black settlers that came out here in 5th Ward in 1966. And this is where they stayed, right close to downtown. And it went from Jensen all the way to downtown. That's why a lot of blacks that stayed out in 5th Ward didn't have to catch the bus to go to downtown. They could walk to downtown. That's why 5th Ward is and downtown is considered as part of North Side. Now, right up here was the second oldest black church. It was called Mount Vernon. And one of the biggest person who helped jumpstart Mount Vernon was Uncle Toby. That's what they call him, Uncle Toby. Now, this is Hill Street. Now, Hill Street used to go all the way through. In fact, it would go all the way through to Jensen. but they cut it off. Like we're saying, we got what's it called? Now right up here was Mount Vernon, which is the second oldest church and the second oldest Methodist church. The first is Trinity, and then Mount Vernon, and then the first Black Baptist church came in, and that was Antioch. But as you're looking at Crawford Elementary School, that's why Mount Vernon built that church. And when they moved out here to Fifth Ward, they moved right next to Crawford Elementary School. Now we're gonna go through Fifth Ward. Now on this side of Jensen, like I said, was Fifth Ward. But the original part where blacks moved in, they called it Bloody Fifth. And we're gonna go through Bloody Fifth. And we're going through Bloody Fifth. And Hill Street used to be one of the most dangerous spots because all the beer joints and cafes was on hills. And that's where all the gambling and the fighting and the shooting and the cutting was going down out here in Fifth Ward. That's why they nicknamed it the Bloody Fifth. See, and like I said, this street up here should be Hill Street. See, and Hill Street would go all the way through. But as you see, the beautification they are doing out here in Fifth Ward. See, this is Hill. See, right back on the other side of Hills that we just come from, that's where all the beer joints and clubs and gambling was going on, and shooting and cutting. And right up in here on Hills, they had little shotgun houses on both sides of the streets. And you say, what shotgun houses? That means you can shoot a shotgun from the front door to the back door. Okay, now this is where Hill Street would run into Jensen. And then right here on CONECT, this is where, when I was working at KYK, this is where Reverend Jackson came out here. And this is one of the oldest. Lyons Avenue, I think, is the oldest black church, but right here was Pleasant Grove with Reverend C.L. Jackson. And when he came out here to build this dome church, which they have torn it down already. He took a lot of homes out of here on CONECT. And as you can see, that big, beautiful dome church, along with the other part of Pleasant Grove, is no longer there. Beautification. All of this property is gone. Let me show you exactly. See, all this used to be Pleasant Grove. All this property used to be Pleasant Grove. See, and all this here right here used to be little shotgun houses right up in here. This used to be a street. And I'm gonna show you how that go. And see, when I said when they came through here and built Highway 59, which was once called the East Texas Freeway, they took a lot of black homes out of here, and a lot of black families had to relocate out here in Fifth Ward. All right, as we go down here, and we will show you. See, this used to be a little street, and this street here used to go all the way through to Gregg Street. A street called Clark. The Clark Street used to go all the way out. See, all these used to be little shotgun houses all back up in here. And Clark Street would go all the way out to CONECT. See, this is where Reverend Jackson Church used to be, which was Pleasant Grove. But some of you people haven't been out to Fifth Ward lately. It's no more Pleasant Grove. Beautification have wiped it away. And all these homes and little shotgun houses Reverend Jackson moved them out to build his big dome church is no longer there. There it is. That was the property of one of the most popular churches out here in Fifth Ward, Reverend C.O. Jackson, and it was called Pleasant Grove. It's no longer there. All right. Now, Bloody Fifth went all the way back to downtown. See, people could walk from Fifth Ward to downtown. See, all of these freeways wasn't here. This was land and houses. People could take shortcuts, and they right downtown. They didn't have to catch the bus. But see, right up in here was Jensen. We're finna show you what Fifth Ward will connect into Second Ward. And why in 1866, when they added the extra ward to Houston, which was Fifth Ward, how they connected it in to Second Ward. And Second Ward was for Hispanics. And all the wards was really dedicated towards blacks here in Houston. I would say blacks took over most of the wards before the 1900s. I would say around 1880, most of the wards had become predominantly black. So by the 1900s, all the wards was considered minority wards, where the whites moved out towards the heights. All right, now right up here as we cross this bridge is I-10. Now I-10, we just crossed I-10 east and west. Going to the left is east. Going to the right is west. Okay, now as we go down Jensen Drive, and right up here at this next red light will be Clinton Drive. Clinton Drive run all the way through to Clinton Park and Fidelity Manor. And this is the beginning of Clinton Drive right up here on this corner. Okay, now as you cross this bridge, you're gonna be able to cross this bridge. This bridge is where the Buffalo Bayou is. Remember I told you when we did the history on the Buffalo Bayou, how it comes through Fifth Ward. Well, this is part of it coming through Fifth Ward, trying to get to the ship channel. And like I said, people in Fifth Ward, they could walk downtown. Now, you're leaving Fifth Ward and you're into Second Ward. The minute you cross that bridge, remember how they would have railroad tracks to separate the blacks from the whites? Well, then they would have a bridge to separate Fifth Ward from Second Ward. And right now you're in Second Ward. And Second Ward was predominantly Hispanics. All right. Now, right up in here is where Jensen turns into Navigation. See right there? Navigation. And this is where Navigation, and you run in, Navigation runs into Harrisburg. And it runs into Harrisburg, Texas. Thank you very much.